man-made laws you want to put in place, it will not rise above that of the laws that God has put in place. Never, ever. He will and always will have the last word. We look to leadership. And in leaders, we see Nehemiah, who left all that he had with the king, the prosperity that was there, the luxury that was there, to be a leader for the people in leading them to do what is right before their God. Let me share a couple aspects of his leadership. He established a reasonable and attainable goal. He had a sense of mission. He was willing to get involved. He rearranged his priorities in order to accomplish his goal. He patiently waited for God's leading and God's timing. He showed respect to his superiors. He prayed at crucial times. He made his request with tact and graciousness. He was well prepared and thought of in his needs in advance. As you recall, he took 3 days to pray, to rest, and to plan. He investigated the situation firsthand. He informed others only after he knew the size of the problem. He identified himself as one with the people, not above them. He set before them a reasonable and attainable goal. He assured them that God was in the project. And when God is in the project, you can't tear that down. He displayed a self-confidence in the face of obstacles. You see, he displayed God's confidence in the face of the obstacles. He did not argue with his opponents. He was not discouraged by opposition. He courageously used the authority of his position in order to get the job done. And so for leaders, as you're put into place, remember those 21 points for yourselves on how to lead in this new church. We spoke of 4 oppositions, but there were 3 more. One was the opposition dealing with compromise. You see, they wanted to take Nehemiah away. They invited him to go out with them to this one place to be able to meet with him. 4 times they gave a letter asking him to come and talk with them. 4 times he said no. His focus was on building the wall, not on negotiating some type of peace. In doing so, they decided to go one step further than simply demanding a compromise. They decided to go the next step, and that is slander. And they passed out an open letter so that all would be able to see. You see, in those days, a sealed letter would be one that would place a wax on the letter and seal it with a seal so that no one would know what was in the letter except for the person that was intended to read it. But they chose to put out slander. Oh, you're against the king. This is conspiracy. And they brought it before everyone. Nehemiah made it very, very clear, and this is chapter 6, verse 8. No such thing you say is being done, but you invent them on your own heart. For they were all trying to make us afraid, and their hands would weaken the work, and it would not be done. But God had other plans. In prayer and in talking with God, he was able to reveal to Nehemiah the secrets of their heart. And in doing so, allowed him to stay focused to what his task was. There was one last opposition, one last attack that they were trying to do, and that is that of treachery. A man came to him and said, hey, come and hide in the temple. Come with us and hide in here. Nehemiah looked at him and said, why should I hide away from this opposition that is here? And he kept saying, but God, these people are going to kill you. They're going to get rid of you. It's best for you to hide. Nehemiah said, no. You see, when you put fear in, it will freeze the will, and it will freeze the motives and the drive of the people. They wanted to put fear in, but fear didn't work. If Nehemiah would have listened to them everything that was worked up to this point would have been totally gone. He chose not to. And he realized in doing so, God was speaking to his heart of the treachery they were trying to do to him. Verse 14, my God remembered these two individuals according to their works, and the prophets, and the rest of their prophets, who would have made me afraid. You see, the last piece is for each one of us as far as when it comes down to ministry. And as I talk to individuals, we tend to have fear. We're scared. We're scared to watch God use us in mighty and powerful ways. The fear is there, and what I ask you to do is put aside the fear. You have got to get beyond the fear that holds you back from ministries, that holds you back from allowing God to use you in a powerful and mighty way. You've heard me share the story before of a young Indian that was wanting to be a brave. But in order to do so, he needed to be able to kill a bear. And so he went to the village heads and they said, we understand you want your rites of passage to no longer be called a child, but to be called a young man. In order to do so, you will leave this village as a child and you will return as a man, but only after you've killed your bear. He studied hard. He learned from his father and from his uncles about what it's like to kill a bear. He learned how to track bears. He knew what he needed to do. So when he went out, every time he saw a bear footprint, the bear would be going one way, he would turn and run the other. He was scared. But after a long while of doing this, he realized the loneliness out there is, if I don't kill my bear, I'm never going back home. The only way I could come home as a brave is if I'm able to kill a bear. And so he started looking at the tracks. He saw big bear tracks, and he saw little bear tracks. He followed the little bear tracks. He wasn't stupid. He was scared. He was fearful. He wasn't stupid. So he started following the little tracks. And as he starts looking down the little tracks, he finds this bear, and he goes up to it and decides, if I'm going to kill this bear, I've got to grab a hold of it. I've got to put my arm around it, and I can't let go. And so he sneaks up to the bear. He grabs a hold, takes his arm, and puts it around his neck, and he's holding on. As much as he could, he's holding on, and that bear's getting mad. He tries to claw at him and cuts at his face and cuts at his arm. He rolls over and tries to force his weight to crush the little boy. But the man starts to emerge. The bear throws him up against a tree, and he knows he's got to hold on. There's a saying that when you grab the tail of a tire, never let go. Same thing applies here. He held on and he held on and he held on, and he slowly felt that life slipping away from this bear. And finally, when that bear was dead and gone, when he was absolutely sure, he slowly tried to release this grip. His body was sore and hurt from the big fight, from the struggle. And he stood up, but he's got his bear. He goes back to camp. He goes back home. And the village chief comes up to him and he says, I heard you killed your bear. I heard you've become a brave. Welcome back. He says, do you realize now that every bear in the forest is scared of you? He's like, yeah. And he says, do you realize that they're scared of you not because you killed a bear, but they are afraid of you because you lost your fear? See, in ministry, when you finally lose your fear and you step up and you enter into God's will and start doing what he asks, incredible things will happen. But it will not happen if the fear is there. And through this week, as this committee is meeting to find individuals that God is wanting them to place into ministry, I ask you as a church body to pray. Pray for yourselves. Ask the Lord, are you wanting me to be in service for you? Talk to him. See if he will touch your heart. pray for this small group, that they would pick strong men and women according to God's will to serve him. The mighty thing in building the wall is this last part. Verse 15 and verse 16. And so when the wall was finished on the 25th day of the month of Elul, it took 52 days to build this wall. It took 4 months to put this church together. And it happened when all the enemies heard of it, and all the nations around us saw these things, that they were disheartened. And in their own eyes, I love this line,